Good evening. Thank you, Tina. It's my honor to be here to talk about energy policy or nuclear issues about Japan. I have been saying exactly the same thing for the last 15 years, but nobody in the parliament was willing to listen to me until March 11th. I've been talking about how this nuclear fuel cycle doesn't work for 15 years. I never talk about accidents or safety of the nuclear reactor. But after March 11, everyone come up to me, hey, that's exactly what you said. I never said that, you know. But, so that tells you people don't really listen to you. All right, this is, oops, sorry. Where's the laser? Oh, here's the laser. This is a nuclear fuel cycle. This is our nuclear policy. The difference between Japan and other nuclear country is we try to do that all the way to the bottom. You take uranium and you burn it in a light water reactor and you get the spent fuel. It's just like burning wood in a stove and you get the charcoal. And usually you finish here. Even in the United States, you take the spent fuel out and you try to bury it in Nevada, state of Nevada, and the people there are sort of opposed to it. So President Obama set up a special presidential commission, and they are looking for where to put their spent fuel. But that's where you stop, usually. But in Japan, it's a different story. Because we started out the nuclear power because we felt it's not safe to depend on oil. We import almost 100% of oil from Middle East or other countries. And oil is supposed to run out in, I don't know, less than a century. So we needed alternative energy back in the 50s and 60s. Back then, the renewable energy is something of a dream. So possible alternative was nuclear. So we decided to go nuclear. But I mean, if you really think about it, we import 100% of uranium. So what's the difference between oil and uranium? So what we thought is if we take spent fuel and reprocess it, it's simply you use a chemical and melt it, and you get plutonium. And what you take, when you take the spent fuel and take plutonium out, you get the high-level radioactive nuclear waste. And then, oops, what is it? And then you take plutonium, and you're supposed to build a fast breeder reactor. If you put the plutonium in the fast breeder reactor, you get the power, and you get the more plutonium. Supposedly, if you put a kilo of plutonium in the fast breeder reactor, you're supposed to get 1.2 kilo of plutonium. So although we have to import uranium in Japan, if we build a fast breeder reactor in Japan, we can, I don't know, multiple plutonium. So we call it sort of domestic, not really domestic, but the semi-domestic energy, just like a hydro. So the Japanese government has been writing two columns. One is import energy, oil, coal, natural gas. The domestic energy is hydro and nuclear. And once we complete this nuclear fuel cycle, this fast breeder reactor is supposed to give us enough power for next 2,000 years. So, you know, those 2,000 years, someone could think of something else to do after. But I think for our time, 2,000 years is supposed to be enough. So this is sort of rosy, bright future that's being promised to us. I came to the parliament in 1996, October 20th exactly. And if you remember, there was a Kyoto conference about global warming, and we had a Kyoto Protocol. It was December 97. So when I first came to the parliament, everyone was talking about how we're going to do with the Kyoto Protocol. And the Japanese government policy, official policy, was to build 20 more nuclear power reactors. And I set up a little study group to check if the policy works. And the answer was, it probably wouldn't. I'll tell you why. The core of the nuclear fuel cycle is fast breeder reactor. Back in 1967, we had a first sort of long-term strategy on nuclear energy. And the first one says, by the end of 1980s, or second half of 1980s, we should be able to have a fast breeder reactor. So it will take 20 years. And then 5 years later, they revised it. And the second long-term planning says it would slip a little bit, but we should be able to have the fast breeder reactor in the first half of the 1990s. And then 5 years later, they revised it again. And then it'll be 21st century, 2000 something. So every 5 years, they had to revise the strategy. And every 5 years, the fast breeder reactor be delayed a little bit more than 5 years. So even before the 1995, the fast breeder reactor is something you can probably not are able to achieve. And then came 1995 December, our pilot plant called Monju got a leak in, what do you call it, sodium? Is that how you call natrium in English? Yes. Why don't you just simply call natrium or something? I always get mixed up. But anyway, Monju had a sodium leak, got a big fire, and it's been stopped ever since. Even today, the Monju is not in operation. And every year it costs about roughly $200 million just to maintain the status quo. The Monju has never been in operation since December 95, but that's how much money we are spending. And so the government is now telling us that the fast breeder reactor will not be ready at least not by 2050. So what about 2060? The government wouldn't tell you, but chances are come 2050 they will tell you sometime in the 22nd century. So the fast breeder reactor is probably not going to be developed. And plus, some nuclears, I know there are some nuclear scientists in this room. One of the nuclear scientists in the National University just told me that the fast breeder reactor may not increase the volume of plutonium. It's supposed to increase it from 1 kilo to 1.2 kilo, but he told me it's in theory. In reality, the plutonium would be increased probably just about the same amount or same rate of the interest rate in Japanese banks today. So that's yeah. So you don't have to worry about the fast breeder reactor. Simply, it's gone. And then another big problem is we have no place to put nuclear waste. This is going to go on for 100,000 years. You can ask someone from Finland. They're the only country that's building the disposal place. You have to find a place and you dig about 300 to 500 meter deep, and you place the nuclear waste there. And the first 100 years or 300 years, you have to monitor from the surface. And then after 300 years, you can forget about it, and it will take another 100,000 years for the radiation to come back to the normal level. 100 years means just about we finished the Russo-Japanese War. 300 years still during the Tokugawa shogunate. So the time-wise, I mean, the uranium should last for another 70, 80 years, but nuclear waste need to be treated for another 100 to 300 years. So, but that is if we can find a place to bury it. And according to the government plan, we are supposed to find a place or decide where to bury it by 2028. In order to find a place by 2028, you need to start digging, test digging, 20 years before that. And in order to dig someplace, you need another 5 years to go through all the old document to find out if that place could have a volcano or earthquake or underground water or something. So 2028 minus 25 years would be 2003. So if you start those process by 2003, you'll be able to get it 2028. Now this is 2011, and we have no idea where to dig. So 2028, we're not going to be able to have it. And if we decided on by 2028, it will take 10 years to build the underground facility. So now all the nuclear waste is in Aomori Prefecture. So the government has promised the governor of Aomori that by 2045, we get everything, all the nuclear waste in Aomori be taken out and brought to the place. But I don't think we're going to be able to find a place by 2028. So we're not going to be, the facility will not going to be ready by 2038. That means we're not going to be able to get the things out from Aomori by 2045. So what are we going to do? Another problem is, since 1960s, we've been saying we're going to do this nuclear fuel cycle. So what we have been doing is, although we didn't have a capability to reprocess, we simply shipped the spent fuel to UK and France, and we had them reprocess our spent fuel. Now we have 31 tons of plutonium, a little bit over 10 tons back in Japan, another 20 is in Europe. 31 tons. North Korea has got a plutonium, and they had just a nuclear testing. And according to the estimate, North Korea should have about 50 kilograms of plutonium. And we wanted to have a 6-party talk with North Korea. Now Japan sitting right next to it, we got 31 tons of plutonium. So we should have a 6,000 party talks about plutonium. Well, actually, IAEA spent a lot of money. I mean, according to their budget, they spent a lot of money monitoring our plutonium, not North Korean plutonium, because we got so much. Oops. Oops. Wrong button. Oops. Yeah, I can't fix it. Oh, here we go. All right, and another problem is the spent fuel. After the March 11th, everyone knows about the spent fuel, and everyone knows about the spent fuel must be put in the water. Every nuclear reactor has a spent fuel pool, and it's going to overflow. Every year, our 54 nuclear reactors get about 1,000 tons of spent fuel out. And if you calculate our spent fuel pool, there are about 6,000 ton worth of empty space. So, well, right now the Fukushima Daiichi has been terminated. Hamaoka is not in operation. So we don't get 1,000 tons, but we could still get quite a few spent fuel. If all the nuclear reactor get back in operation sometime next year, then our spent fuel pool will last about 7 or 8 years, and then it's going to overflow. Now, TEPCO is worried about the situation, and they are trying to build a 5,000 ton spent fuel pool up in Aomori. If we could use that, maybe we could last about 12 years, 15 years, somewhere around there. But after that, we simply just couldn't take the spent fuel out of the nuclear reactor. So all the nuclear reactors in Japan, as it is, will stop in 12 years. And then what are we going to do? That's the major problem. Oops, wrong button again. And reprocessing plant. We have built a reprocessing plant in Rokkasho in Aomori Prefecture. If that plant's in operation, we get about 5 tons of plutonium every year. Now we have 30 tons of plutonium. Oops, wrong button again. Now we have 30 tons of plutonium. And the Japanese government been telling the whole world that we're going to burn that in the first breeder reactor, but that's not going to be ready. Even according to the Japanese government, it's not going to be ready by 2050, and it probably never be ready. So what are we going to do with 30 tons of plutonium? That's a major problem. But now they wanted to operate a reprocessing plant. Then we're going to get the 5 tons of plutonium every year. In 6 years, we're going to double the plutonium. And then what are we going to do? And the government is still talking about the fast breeder reactor, but that's in reality not going to be ready. But if we don't move the reprocessing plant, the spent fuel going to overflow. If we have a reprocessing plant in operation, then we're going to have more plutonium. And there's a guard man guarding the plutonium, but this is Japan. They don't carry any guns or anything. And what if terrorists comes? If you ask them what happened if terrorists came and if they had machine guns or something, then the answer you would get is they would call the police. And the light water reactor that's supposed to be 100% or 120% or even 200% safe blow up this March. So even the safety of the light water reactor is in big question. So this rosy scenario doesn't make much sense. And if you add 20 more nuclear reactors, you're going to have, which button is it? This one, yeah. More spent fuel. So the spent fuel pool not going to last for 6 years or 12 years. And nuclear waste going to be more, and you just don't have a place. And you're going to get more plutonium. So adding 20 more nuclear reactors to meet the Kyoto Protocol requirement doesn't just make much sense, or just doesn't make no sense. Now everyone knows about it, and a lot of people knew about it even March 11th. But why this happened? There's a group of people who share the interest. We call it nuclear village. The power company is got a very special status in Japan. They have a regional monopoly, so even if you don't want to buy electricity from TEPCO, you have no choice. I have a British journalist who lived in Tokyo for 5 years, and he kept asking me why TEPCO had so much TV commercial. And if you listen to it carefully, this Denko-chan, the little girl, is telling you not to use electricity. So TEPCO is actually spending so much money not to, promote their product. Kind of strange. And they have a captive grid. All the grid in TEPCO area is operated by TEPCO. Right after the March 11th, TEPCO told all the independent power generators that they are not able to use TEPCO grid because TEPCO doesn't want the electricity price to go up. So TEPCO actually told there's a market in Japan for the excess electricity. TEPCO told the market that no one can use the TEPCO grid after March 14th. It is to keep the price low And TEPCO went to each independent power generator, offered the price. You can sell us at this price, or no one's going to buy it. No one just can't buy it. So that's what they did. And the third one is a guaranteed price. The power companies are guaranteed not only the price, they are guaranteed the profit. And that skew the whole energy supply. And that's the core of the power company's interest. And in order to keep this, TEPCO and other power companies offered very nice political contribution to LDP politicians. Now I belong to LDP, so I'm asking within the party to declare how much political contribution each politician received from power company for, say, last 10 years. And if, well, it's legal, there's nothing wrong about it, so they should be able to declare how much they get. Right now, no one's doing it. And DPJ, the Democratic Party of Japan, they are backed by the union, the power company's union, very strong. And they are one of their core campaign machines. So almost all DPJ candidates sign a contract with those power companies' labor union saying that I'm going to say nothing against nuclear power. That's why they are very slow to move today. And they also get the union money. METI, the ministry, they're supposed to be regulating the power industries, but also they are supposed to be promoting the power industry. That's a very strange thing. NISA, the Huanying or Huanying, they go under METI. So they are promoting and they are regulating at the same time. And also, when they retire, when those career diplomats retire, they get the job with the power companies. So, I mean, you know you're going to be working for them. You don't want to regulate them harshly. The top energy bureaucrat was supposed to become the senior vice president of TEPCO, and he saw the accident and he slowly disappeared. Universities. The university professors of the nuclear science get a pretty nice amount of R&D money. And their graduate students would have to get a job with a power company or some nuclear reactor builders, or maybe work for METI. So they are part of this nuclear village. And if you remember, right after the March 11th, all those national university professors came on TV. Oh, don't worry about it. This is not serious. It's not meltdown or anything. It wasn't all true. And the companies, because the power companies have a guaranteed price, they don't have to worry about the cost of procurement. So, the head of the Keidanren, Mr. what's his name, Yonekura-san, has been tried to protect TEPCO all the way, because for Keidanren, power company is very juicy customers, and they don't want to lose that. And the media, all the media, starting from the TV station and weekly magazines, newspapers, radio station. Many years ago, I was invited to a radio station, and they want me to talk about the nuclear policy. So I said, yeah, I'm very happy to do that, but are you okay to do it? And they said, fine. So I talked about the nuclear policy for about 45 minutes, and almost all the crew lost a job. Yeah, they came very close. Channel 10, when the Rokkasho reprocessing plant was completed, they had a sort of 3-night special program on Rokkasho. On the first night, they interviewed me. The next day, the power company went to Channel 10, and that program, Hodo Station, had no sponsorship from the power companies. So, I thought they could do it. But what the power company said to them is they would withdraw all the sponsorship from Channel 10. So the second night and third night, it's been about 7 years, still hasn't aired yet. And now they know that TEPCO is probably not going to be able to give them money. So the weekly magazine was the first one to change the side. They are attacking TEPCO every week. The newspaper is sort of split. Yomiuri Sankei is still pro-nuclear. Asahi Mainichi Tokyo is sort of against the nuclear. How it happened was many years ago, Asahi Shimbun got the first ad from TEPCO, and Yomiuri was worried because Yomiuri is supposed to be promoting the nuclear, but Asahi got the ads first. So Yomiuri went to TEPCO, hey, give us some ad. And then Mainichi was very strongly against the nuclear power by then, but they saw Asahi, Yomiuri getting ads, so they changed the side and got the thing. So now after the March 11th, we lost Fukushima first and second, and we're probably going to lose Hamaoka. Then what should we do? I think we need to decide on two things. Number one, after this accident, we shouldn't be building any more nuclear reactors, period. Number two, nuclear reactor has a life. The life is about 40 years. It is 40 years. So let's not build any additional nuclear power reactor. And then any nuclear reactor that's been done for 40 years should be dismantled, disposed. And if we keep those two policies, this is where we are right now. And we will lose a nuclear reactor slowly. And the last one will be done by 2050. So by 2050, Japan will go nuclear free. And this is exactly what I proposed back in 1997, right before the Kyoto Protocol. Instead of building 20 nuclear reactors, why don't we just stop building the nuclear reactor? And let's finish the reactor after 40 years. And then by 2037, we go nuclear free. And they say, I'm crazy. Now I'm saying exactly the same thing. And a lot of people tell me I'm too patient. They cannot wait till 2050. This red line, well, we lost the Fukushima first, second, and Hamaoka is done. And there's a couple things that are, we think, pretty dangerous. So if we stop that, we will start from here. And then it will slowly phase out by 2050. And I think this is the most realistic denuclearization of Japan. Some people wanted to go nuclear free by 2020. Some people even say, well, let's not restart the nuclear power plants. Well, that can be an option. That could be done. Which one is it? Yeah, here we go. Oops. As we fade out the nuclear, well, actually, we have a 54. It should be right there, but we don't need 54 nuclear reactors. Today, we only have 11 in operation, or maybe 10. And those 10 will go out sooner or later. By next spring, we're going to have 0 nuclear reactors in operation. Are we able to sustain the power supply? Yes, we can. If we go nuclear, 0 nuclear reactors, we're not going to have we're not going to have a blackout or anything. We have enough hydro, and there's a lot of, the private power generators. There are about 30 million kilowatt worth of private power generator, which is equivalent of 30 nuclear reactors. And METI simply said half of them is not usable. We say why? They just simply say, well, it's simply not usable. I doubt it. So if we do that, I think we can offset the loss of nuclear power. And if you read the Mainichi Shimbun, I think it was yesterday or the day before, on the top page, 6 or 7 power company will go the power shortage during the winter. I don't know how they calculate that, but it's not going to happen. And like during the night, we have more than enough electricity. And during the daytime, it's only a short while. So what we have to do is, if you are worried about the power supply, you simply have to raise the price for that time frame. And the manufacturing plant could shut down those days or those hours. If you have a private power generator, you would use the generator and you would try to sell the power to the power companies at the very high price. So if you change the power price, there will be no shortage of the power supply. So it shouldn't be your worry. And pass to the future, then what should we do? This is a pretty optimistic scenario. We are right here. This one is renewable. This is nuclear, coal and oil, natural gas. And this is efficiency. What we're trying to do is, number one, I think we need to increase the efficiency of the power usage. I think by 2050, we could reduce the 40% of power usage by 2050. If you change the aircon or fridge or television, you probably need to use less than half of power. If you have more strict rules for the building, and then you would save a lot of energy. And right now, a lot of people boil water or do the heating of the room with electricity, and that's not the efficient usage. So if we try to manage the efficient usage of energy, I think we could reduce the energy demand by 40% by 2050. And next for 40 years, I think we need to increase the renewable energy. I don't know if we could actually cover everything, but that should be our target. We can phase out the nuclear by 2050, and oil and coal could be phased out. If we try the efficiency and if we try the renewable, and if we still have not enough energy or power, I think we could use the natural gas. That's going to be the cleanest energy, and there's a shale gas coming from the United States, so it should have plenty of supply. So I think that's going to be the path to the future. And one thing we need to do is, we got to change the whole structure of power industry. Now it's like each power company has captive grid and power generation. I think we need to abolish the regional monopoly, and we gotta have a open grid, and anyone could supply and anyone could buy electricity from their open grid. Another thing is guaranteed price. Right now, every cost that power companies spend is recovered plus profit. The profit is, exactly speaking, the profit is 3% of fixed asset. So you calculate the 3% of your fixed asset and you just add on top of the cost. How can you lose money with this scheme? And that's why, see, if you want to build 1 million kilowatt of whatever power generation, if you build natural gas power generation, you will probably need like $500 million. If you wanted to build a nuclear reactor, it would cost 10 times more than natural gas. Which would you prefer? If you are typical, you go for nuclear because the fixed asset will be 10 times bigger. That means your profit is 10 times bigger. And nuclear material, you can be counting as a fixed asset. So your uranium fuel will be considered as a fixed asset. So 3% of uranium will be a price. But if you buy natural gas, it's not going to be considered as a fixed price. So all the energy or power price being skewed in favor of the nuclear. So what happened is, Japan has to import 100% of oil, and Taiwan and Korea are in the same situation. But our electricity price is more than twice as much as Korea and Taiwan. And our industry has been damaged because of that. Now, a lot of people are saying if we shut down the nuclear reactors, the industry will simply move out. Before I came to the parliament, I was running a small automobile supply company. I produced the connectors and terminals and those things for the engine harness. When I look back, was only it's half of 1% of whole manufacturing cost is electricity price. So if it's 50% increase, it's still less than 1%. It's not big enough to move your manufacturing plant out of Japan. Toyota, if you look at Toyota, whole manufacturing cost, I think it was 0.8% or 0.9% of manufacturing cost is electricity bill. So for Toyota, it's more like yen gets stronger or their salary gets higher. That has a major impact. I met a guy who runs a manufacturing plant, and he told me that he is thinking about moving his plant to Vietnam because of the power supply. And I said, well, in Vietnam there's a blackout already. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. You may have a blackout in Japan, so you go to Vietnam where you have a blackout already. Just don't make sense. So I think there's a sort of terror strategy by ministry and power company. It started out, if you push out TEPCO, there'll be a blackout. Or if TEPCO goes down, there's going to be a financial crisis. Now the nuclear reactor, if all of them are shut down, industry will simply move out. That's not all true. Some banking people came to see me and they said, well, TEPCO play a big role in the financial industry. Well, I know that. TEPCO has a huge amount of bond. If TEPCO goes down, the banking industry goes down too. So I say, oh, don't worry about it. If there's a financial crisis, we will just simply pump in government money into the banking industry, provided we're going to be forcing the bank management to leave because they're just simply not good bankers, and they simply shut up about it. So we have to be very careful. Before March 11th, not many Japanese people really thinking about the energy issues. There are some leftist, I wouldn't say extremists, but some leftists talking about safetiness of nuclear reactors. What if there's an earthquake? The nuclear reactor will blow up or something like that. So it was a sort of theological battle between the power company and the leftist, if it's safe or not. No one knew the truth until March 11th. Now we know the answer. But this nuclear fuel cycle policy itself is not logical. It doesn't make sense, and it's not it doesn't make economic sense. So we have to stop here, and we have to think, what is the best way to go forward from here? Right now, we have 25 trillion yen to buy oil, coal, natural gas, all the material coming from abroad. If our GDP is 500 trillion yen, I think it's now a little less than that. But if we say it to 5 trillion yen, we spend 25 trillion yen of that to buy energy from abroad. So that's 5% of entire GDP goes abroad. China, India will be coming into the world economy, and they're going to be pushing up the price of everything. So those 25 trillion yen will probably go up. Do we want to do this? even the cleanest natural gas, if you burn it, you get carbon dioxide. So what are we going to do with the Kyoto Protocol? Are we simply just retire from that, or are we try to do something somewhere else and meet the Kyoto Protocol target? So we have to think about climate change. We have to think about the price of the energy, and then what are we going to do with nuclear power? I personally believe, let's take 40 years, and by 2050, let's phase out the nuclear. And with renewable and the efficiency of the energy usage, we could cover that. And if we don't have enough of that, we could use the natural gas. But a lot of people don't like the idea. A lot of people wanted to phase out the nuclear even before that. So we have to think about the energy price and the climate change. And if we have an answer, we could do that. I haven't really heard a good alternative, but we could simply debate about it. And if you have an answer, we could do this. And in the meantime, I think it's government responsibility to tell you which one is safe. Like Hamaoka was in danger, and Prime Minister Kan's decision to stop or ask power company to stop was right, and I don't think they should be restarted. Fukushima Daiichi, Daini need to be stopped, and there are some other nuclear reactors in danger. Some are old, some are Mark 1, some are near the sort of possible epicenter of the big earthquake. So it's government responsibility to tell you which one's safe, which one's a little more dangerous, and we should be terminating those dangerous ones. And it's government responsibility to tell you how much nuclear reactor you actually need to provide a stable power supply. You definitely don't need a 54. You may be able to do without any of it. I think it's possible. Would you like to do that? That's the next question. Then you have to think of how we're going to do the climate change and the price, but that's a possible. And then you have to free up the power industry. The power price is artificially high in Japan. If you have liberated the power industry, the price will come down. And there'll be more investment coming into this field, and there'll be a lot more renewable energy supply. And that's good for local economy. So do we have any? Sorry, this is in Japanese, but this is talking about the Purusamaru. I thought that was in English, but they told me it's Japanese katakana. Purusamaru is, we get the 31 tons of plutonium, and we don't have a fast breeder reactor. So we decided to take 9 uranium and 1 plutonium mixed and make MOX fuel. The MOX fuel will be burned in the light water reactor. Why do you want to do this? Simply, there's an excuse to have a little plutonium. We're going to burn plutonium as a MOX fuel, so don't worry about it. There's a 30 tons, but in 100 years, it's going to be 0. And then you save 10% of uranium. You take 90% of uranium, you add the 10% of plutonium. So you actually save 10% of a uranium resource. That means if uranium is going to last for another 70 years, if you do this pulsar, uranium will last 77 years. You talked about 2,000 years, but now you're talking about 70 years. But that's the excuse. And in order to, in order to, wrong button. In order to do the Purusamaru, the power company and the METI and the governor sort of fixed the meetings, and there are more power company employee came to the conference and talked about, they want to do that Purusamaru, things like that. So I think it's going to be very difficult to continue this mechanism. And now, because plutonium can be multiplied in Japan with fast breeder reactor, METI actually said the nuclear is a domestic energy. But now the fast breeder reactor not going to be ready, and the plutonium going to be just excess. But they still continue to say that nuclear is domestic energy. And I asked them why. The answer is uranium, after imported, uranium is going to be burned in light water reactor for another 3 years or 4 years. So they would consider it's a domestic energy. So I asked them, if you buy, say, GM, Ford, or Audi, and bring it to Japan, and if you drive it for 10 years, is it domestic car? And the answer was, no, the gasoline is imported. So I said, well, if the gasoline is imported, the Toyota made in Japan will be considered as a foreign car. And they disappeared. So the nuclear is not a domestic energy, and it's just like oil and the coal. You have to buy 100% uranium. I went way over my time, so I should stop here. And if you have any questions or comment or whatever, I'll be happy to. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sure there are going to be lots of questions, so please can I ask you to keep your questions as brief as possible. And I think because there will be so many questions, we'll take them in groups of 3. So do we have 3 questions to start with? Yes, one over here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the excellent presentation. It was really pleasant to hear about the Japanese energy situation. And one thing which came to my mind, first of all, commented is nuclear being domestic. The reason actually why nuclear is considered to be domestic is that the fuel cost is about 2% of the total cost of nuclear plant during the lifetime. And that's why if it's a national investment, if it's a domestic investment, that's why it's considered to be as a domestic power source. But, well, that's just a definition, and I understand your point. It is one thing which came to my mind is that, however, when this path of using nuclear has been chosen, giving up nuclear doesn't solve the waste problem. What do you think about the waste problem then in the future?
Okay, the second question right at the back there. Lisa? There's a microphone coming.
Thank you. As Harry for Panoramic News. Mr. Idano, the meeting minister, announced yesterday Japan will promote the export of nuclear energy. So how could you convince the world that if you stop nuclear reactors in your country and yet you want to export it, and then how can you have continued expertise to convince also the countries want to borrow or take, like Turkey and Jordan? Thank you.
Okay, and the third question? Yeah, here at the front.
Thank you very much for your excellent speech. I was so impressed. And then my question is, would you mind sharing the reason why you started being against nuclear policy? And then how many colleagues, as a politician, your colleague, is really supporting your idea? And then one question, I'm wondering if you might be a prime minister in the future. So, would you mind sharing your view? It's not related to the topic today, but how many female ministers would you like to assign if you become a prime minister? I'm asking this because it's really important to utilize women resources in Japan. So, thank you very much.
Good question.
Nuclear waste. Yes, we already have a lot of nuclear waste, and even if we stop all the reactor tomorrow, we still have to treat waste anyway. But if you stop early, the nuclear waste will be a little limited. So how much you wanna do this. And if you cannot find a final disposal place, I think you have to continue this interim thing. So I think it's valid to stop the nuclear tomorrow to limit the size of nuclear waste. And I don't think we could find a place in Japan. It's going to be very difficult. I mean, you know, there's an earthquake all over. There's a lots of volcano, and there's lots of underground water. So can we really find a place? And that's a huge question. Now I think we should stop the Monju and stop wasting money on Monju. But I think we should continue some research. How are we going to transfer the, you know, this today's nuclear waste into something else so we could treat a little easier? I don't know if that is possible or not. I'm not a nuclear scientist, but I think Monju is simply the waste of money, I guess. DPJ is, I think, crazy about exporting a nuclear reactor. I think it's totally out of their mind, as usual. We were debating the nuclear treaty with Jordan, and in Jordan they are going to their plan is to build a nuclear power plant in the middle of the desert, and you need the water to cool it. Where you get the water? The answer is from the sewage treatment. You know, there's a sewage coming from, and you have a sort of a treatment facility, and you turn the sewage into clean water, and you supply that water to nuclear. According to my research, there's one place in state of Arizona that has the same water supply coming from the sewage. But I don't know. And the emergency water supply in this Jordan coming from the river. But I think the nuclear reactor is on top of the hill. So you need the power to pump up the water. And if you lose the power, the water won't come in case of emergency. So even LDP opposed to this in the last, I proudly declare. So I think it's crazy. And the other thing is the Japanese companies, I don't think they are competitive in those project management. So I think we should simply stop that. How many colleagues in LDP? Well, before March 11, there was none. It was me against the whole LDP. 2 years ago, I ran for the presidency of LDP, and 20 my supporters or Shisennin told me the night before the thing officially started, all right, for next week, you're not supposed to talk about nuclear. And that was one of my core issues, but those 20 members just simply told me, you're not going to wear the green glasses. That's what I was wearing. And you don't talk about the nuclear. So I told them, well, when I become the president, I'll be talking about it. And they said, fine, but I lost. Right now, we have a study group within LDP, and there are at least 50 members. I think it's basically the younger LDP members, but we don't have many young ones. That's the problem. So it's now against the 50 versus the rest. When I become prime minister, how many women do? Well, it depends. If there's a good one, I don't mind. If there's a good man, I don't mind. So I don't think it's because of men or women. It's like if you are capable, you should be in my cabinet.
All right, we have some more questions. Yeah, the back and the middle.
The idea of having a Genpatsu in Jordan may not be so far-fetched. As you may know, Israel is on the way of becoming a major exporter of LNG. So some kind of a combination might be worked out. And as an aside, maybe Japan might consider investing in exploration of natural gas off the shore of Israel. Thank you.
Okay, there's a question at the front here.
Thank you. Piude from Italy. Thank you very much for your fantastic presentation. I'm waiting for the time you're becoming Prime Minister and you will tell this in front of the Kante. But I know that it's unfair to ask you to defend Mr. Khan's policies. You just did it before about the closing up of Amauca. Isn't there another thing that you deem he did properly? Before leaving, he saw to it that a couple of legislation would be approved. Among them, I understand, but please correct me if I'm wrong, that in the future, even Japan will be like in Germany and in Italy, where energy can be produced by just everyone, hypothetically, even in my garden, and that the government and the companies would guarantee a market for them. So if this is correct, please tell us, because there is no official place on the Kante, on the Parliament, the legislation, homepage that explain exactly what this legislation is about. And the second thing is, as a politician that has a heart, I know you since a long time and I do respect you very much, don't you think that as a politician you should also take into consideration not only the financial, technical and technological side, but also the social cost of the nuclear? I mean, what we are attending here in Japan is, you know, the whole Japan has overcame more or less not only the tsunami but also the economic crisis. But in Fukushima, it's still a nightmare. Women and kids are worried every single day what to buy, how they are going to check if they're. I mean, among the many nightmares that this world has, Japan included, do we have the duty, the gift to endure also this other nightmare?
Okay, thank you. And a third question? That lady.
Yes, I was just wondering if you could speak to the issue of the guaranteed price, and if it is possible that we'll be able to get out of that, or does TEPCO have a permanent contract with the government that they will always be guaranteed that price? And also if that guarantee, I'm assuming, is coming from a subsidy or some kind of guarantee from taxpayers, and if that money can be funneled into new renewable policy and support for renewable energy.
Thank you. What was the first one? Oh, the natural gas in Israel. Well, I think it should be left to the private industry. Feedin tariff. Yes, Prime Minister Khan said the feedin tariff bill need to be passed before he resigned. Yes, that was a good move. But the bill the government had was terrible. It was written by METI, and METI didn't want to do it. We actually proposed back in 2000. We got the very nice feedin tariff bill, and it wasn't government bill. It was a private members bill. And METI and the power companies and the senior LDP politician killed that. At the same time, Germany passed the same bill, and Germany is now excelling. So we lost about 10 years. We simply amended the government bill. LDP amended the government bill, so it's getting better. But the key is how much you're going to pay. The key is a price, and how long, like 20 years, 17 years, 25 years, and that's still up in the air. And we're gonna choose 5 wise men to decide on that. And who's gonna be those 5? That's the key issues. And we are sort of fighting behind the scenes since tomorrow.
It's not decided.
It's not decided yet. We are trying to decide who's going to decide. So that's where we are. Social cost. Yes, well, before March 11th, what happened was I was the only one fighting in LDP, so I was weird enough. And there are a whole bunch of leftists who had an anti-nuclear movement. I didn't want to be seen as just like them. So, because then I would lose all my credibility. So they were talking about, social cost, the safety net. So that's why I never touched the safety issues, because you wouldn't know until something happens. But if you talk about the economy or logic or things like that, then you can actually see if you are talking, what you are talking it makes sense or not. But if you start talking about the safety net, TEPCO and Tokyo University professor would say simply totally different things. And people wouldn't know who's right. Now they were all wrong. But back then, so I never touched safety issue or social issues. Now you can talk about it. Guaranteed price, because you just add all the costs and add the profit on top of it, and that's going to be your price that you pay for it. So it's not the government, it's consumers. You have to pay for it. And there was supposed to be a yardstick to measure if the cost you talk about is right or not. But now that this special government committee came back, TEPCO has been sort of ballooning the cost. They were actually getting, I don't know, what was it? It was a huge amount of excess cost, and that should have been reduced. So I think we simply have to rewrite the law and let the market decide. That's what we have to do. So it's. I think it was in the rule. Yes, the law says something like that. That price needs to be guaranteed, and bureaucrats wrote the rule as it is. So what we have to do is simply rewrite the law, and then we'll bring it to the market.
Did you go home?
Yes.
Okay.
Peter Bev with Council on Foreign Relations. We've seen the rise of the Tea Party, and now we're seeing the rise of Occupy Wall Street, but not only in Washington, but around Europe. It's a populist movement of citizens expressing their frustration with their government leaders. We've seen it spread to Europe. But in the wake of 3/11, we've seen very little in the way of demonstrations in Japan. I think the largest that I know of is about 10,000, and it was one afternoon. So I'm wondering, why hasn't there been more public expression of frustration with the government's handling of 3/11 and the threat that's been posed by the use of nuclear power? Why has there been so little public response, and would you like to see such a movement, and could there be such a movement in Japan? And my second question is concerning foreign. You're one of the most internationalized members of the Diet. But it looks like, even with the change in government, that Japan is at a dead end or in a vicious cycle with its key partners. The United States on pretend not going nowhere. We're an incident away from a major crisis with the United States. All the still contentious relations with all of your neighbors. If you were Prime Minister, what steps would you take to try and break out of these dead ends and vicious cycles, whether it's North Korea, South Korea, China, Russia, or the U.S.?
Okay, Carl at the back.
You just asked part of a question that I was going to ask about the rise of citizen activists. Up until Hoku, there's been a lot of NGO activity that seems to represent a change in the way people are engaging politically. And there's also been a lot of volunteers, many of whom had never been politically involved or involved in this kind of social activity before the earthquake. Do you think this represents the possibility of something, a fundamental change among the Japanese citizenship in terms of their political engagement? And the second part of that, linked to his questions, was, is there any linkage at all between the citizens who are involved in volunteer activities in NGOs and the anti-nuclear activists who are opposed to the way governments dealt with the crisis.
We'll take one more question.
Thank you again for the very interesting presentation. However, it seems to me it's in some ways it seems aggressive Japanese, but from a kind of a libertarian perspective, it seems to me a little bit chutohamba, if I can be so bold. And what I mean in that sense is you talk about having a freer market, but your suggestion in terms of nuclear, in terms of renewables, as well, we didn't really mention what's behind export is more government subsidies for, Toshiba and other big manufacturers, as well as we're gonna take the fixed cost plus profit model that has worked so well with nuclear power, and then apply it to a free market with renewables. That's not a free market. That's saying the government is going to decide again what consumers don't have the right to choose on their own. That's just an observation. A question would be a few questions actually. So one, what's going to happen with TEPCO? One of the huge problems here is simply that the government is taking responsibility, which means nobody takes responsibility. That's why we can expect that things like TEPCO would happen, because who has responsibility? The government has given TEPCO, every other nuclear manufacturer, a liability cap. So, especially if anything is sotegai, so everything is completely unexpected. Of course, that's always what happens when government grants licenses to, this is where Ashio, Doza, and Minamata, other types of problems all came from. Government saying, you have a license, please do this for us. We release you from liability. One way to quickly clear up.
Can you wrap up the question, please?
How about considering? Considering for nuclear power, just saying to the utilities, let's end the liability cap. You decide whether you want to keep this plant tomorrow. How would that be as a possibility? In terms of Fukushima and Miyagi, I understand that I've heard some news about having a no-tax zone for 10 years for foreign companies. How about saying 20 years? All that area, no taxes. Can we imagine a Silicon Valley happen there?
All right, I think we can just stick to that for now. If we have time, we can come back to you with some more questions. Okay, we'll just take these three first.
Thank you. Nuclear issue was a great issue for some leftist movement for many years. And if you look back to 1955 system, there's a LDP who ruled the country forever, and the socialist who wants to be opposition forever. And those leftists, what they tried was to get the people. Get the people's attention, but they don't want to take over LDP. They don't want to actually do things. So if you say, well, let's do the anti-nuclear demonstration, I don't think those people never thought they could actually do that. But if they, do this, you get those people coming to demonstration, and they might come to your political circle. There were a lot of demonstrations like that. You never try to achieve it, but you use it for demonstration or collecting signatures, or have whatever. And the bad thing is, you don't care if you're going to achieve it or not. But it was a great tool to increase your status or increase your visibility. The political movement used to stop there, and they were happy because they don't want to take over or anything, but they just wanted to keep the leftist movement going so that the number of the socialist card-carrying member would a little bit increase or something. And I think now we have to actually change it. If you wanted to do a demonstration, you have to actually, do it, and you have to actually achieve it. I was very surprised. I get a lot of emails after March 11th. My Twitter follower was like 40,000, 50,000 before the March 11th. Now I have 180,000 following me. And I get a lot of emails. And a lot of people, at the end of the email, they say, what can we do? And I simply thought, they were just saying it. But they were actually asking the question, what can we do? I didn't realize that, but then people I met on the street, what can we really do to, do this? And I was a bit surprised, Well, all you have to do is knock on the politician's local office and tell them what you think. And I realized people are actually asking the real question, what can we do? So I said, go to politician's office in your hometown. And then I get more emails. Can we actually do this? And I said, of course. Do we need to make an appointment? Forget it. You just go there, knock on the door. And if they don't want to see you, they're not going to have a local office in your town, right? The politician set up an office in your hometown because they want to hear your voice. So don't worry about it. Just go up. My hometown, it's a LDP politician, and he's supposed to be pro-nuclear. Well, that's why you have to go and change his mind. If he keeps the same policy, he's gonna lose the next election. Let him know that. And I get mails like, what about sending email? Or what about the demonstration? I say, forget about the demonstration. If you could gather 1 million people, it may be worth doing it. But if you get 1,000 people walking on the street, who cares? The politician wouldn't even notice it. 10,000 people walking down Ginza, well, they may be having fun, but has no influence. So forget about the demonstration, or organize demonstration so that entire demonstrator would visit politician's office in the town. Otherwise, it's useless. Just go knock on the door. And I don't know. Some people report me. Hey, I finally did it. Well, good for you. Keep on doing it. So I was interning in the United States for about 2 years. I actually interned for Richard Shelby when he was a Democratic congressman. And my experience started from there in a small town in Alabama. So I've been thinking that people actually put the pressure on politicians if some issue arises. But I realized people just don't do it here. And I'm a bit surprised, I thought people would come to my office, but I should have get more people coming to the office. Now I realized it. So I'm asking people to come to my office and talk to me or talk to my staff. But that's why we have to do it. Whatever revolution not going to happen in Japan right now because they don't think they can actually change it. So now we have to let them know, something can happen. So this is the first step. So I think whole sort of citizens, activists have to change their mentality. A lot of times they were just demonstrating, or they are just shouting, or they're just doing to get their group going or get their group larger. But that day's over. You have to act to actually achieve your goal. So I think that's what's happening here. And we get a lot of volunteers, and it's great. Since COVID, a lot of young people will go volunteers, and it's a big change. But it doesn't connect to politics. They do something not political issues. Now we have to move them into political arena. What was it? Oh, feedin tariff. Yes, it's not the free market system, but I think it's better than government deciding who to get the subsidy. You can actually buy, or you can actually invest and grow new technology. So it's not a free market, but if you want to move the technology earlier, or if you want to have a cost down earlier, I think it's a good system. TEPCO need to go down. They're not going to be able to pay the compensation. They're not going to be able to pay the cost for the Fukushima Daiichi thing. So they have to go down. And I think it's crazy for the government to decide a particular company will not go bankrupt. And that's crazy enough. The company's stock is still freely traded. It's crazier. And I don't trust Edano-san as a METI minister because he was a chief cabinet secretary who did this. So I don't know if he's anti-nuclear, pro-nuclear, but I don't really trust him. We should well. There's a cap. There's a cap for the government compensation, but beyond that, TEPCO has to cover everything. It's not a nuclear reactor builder. It's not a supplier. It's TEPCO. And TEPCO has to cover everything towards the end. And they're not going to be able to do this. So what we have to do is we simply have to tell TEPCO to get out and nationalize the grid, nationalize the power generator, and sell separately to achieve the independent power grid. Futenma?
Yeah, exactly.
Futenma? If Aso-san lasted 2-3 more months, we should have started reclaiming the land for Camp Schwab. And I think back then Okinawans sort of accepted Camp Schwab. But now Hatoyama-san went and said totally different things, and now it's very difficult to get it. It's simply because it's a governor's authority to give permission to reclaim the land for new airstrip. It's a defense issue. It's a national security issue. So the central government has to do it. I think we need to pass a special law if it's national security issue, or if it's defense issue, or if it's U.S.-based issues. Central government will be 100% responsible, and central government has to give permission to do this. There's no alternative. And I think one of the top 3 issues that we are facing today is how to face the China's military expansion. The other 2 would be the demography and the budget deficit, I think. In order to check China, I think our natural ally would be Russia. I mean, I don't mean to have a same alliance with the U.S.-Japan alliance, but right now Russia sided with China, and I don't think it's good for neither Japan nor Russia. What Tina or Dr. Barrett did in my office is, how are we going to solve their Northern Ireland issues? The answer is pretty simple. I think the politicians should stop lying. All the politicians now says, we want 4 islands back, knowing that's not going to be achievable. But if you keep saying, we want 4 islands back, no one's going to criticize you. So that's why you keep saying it, and nothing's going to happen for half a century. We have to admit it. We have to admit, well, we're not going to get the 4 islands back. So we need to make compromise between 2 and 4. And we have to do that before Putin goes. If Putin goes, no one can control the Russian parliament. And the democratic and nationalistic Russian parliament will not going to ratify any treaty to give any land back to Japan. So our time is limited.
How about Takashima?
Takashima, well, Takashima is ours and Dokdo is theirs. So,
okay. I think we have time for just 3 more questions. Santa-san? Oh. And remember to keep them short, please.
This is the first time that I heard from the Member of Parliament about facts that I thought the fact. Thank you very much for that. The question is, before you be erased, do us the favor. Crisis Management Control Committee, because this is not the only one that we are going to face a lot more critical situation. So swift action we expect hasn't been accomplished. Thank you.
Okay. Another question? A gentleman on the end.
Thank you for the fascinating presentation. You mentioned the need for voters to pressure their politicians. I'm curious about what the future would be about the utility companies, not just TEPCO, but the other regional utility companies. They're pressuring politicians. They still have the lobbying power, and how ready do you think your LDP colleagues, those who are sort of undecided about nuclear, will forego these political contributions, and also the DPJ, sort of the union votes and union money? I mean, surely there's still quite a lot of pressure there, so the shift towards opening up the market and changes that you so suggest, I mean, how politically possible is it?
Time for one more.
Just one thing. Robert Dujarric from Temple University. Just I'd like to thank Kono Sensei because we met thanks to support of the Korea-Japan study group, which has been very successful thanks to your help. And I think your solution for the Takeshima Togdo problem will hopefully make the headlines tomorrow, because I think it's the most innovative and imaginative one we've ever heard from a political leader.
Okay, one more question. It's Robert's with a statement. Yeah.
One quick thing. Why did you vote in favor of bailout, TEPCO bailout bill? And is there any way to relieve or fire the Madarame Chairman Madarame? Thank you.
Thank you. What's the future of utility companies? Yes, they have enough money to pressure, and they have enough personnel to go around the office. What we are trying to do, or what some people are trying to do, is to sort of grade politicians from I don't know how they're going to do it, but some people are setting up a committee to color members of parliament. If he is green, try to stop nuclear, try to make sensing energy policy, or yellow or red, meaning keep it quiet for 2-3 years and then go back to the pro-nuclear posture again, or things like that. And they're trying to let voters know what they think. They are trying to do not only the incumbents, but candidates in each 300 district. If they could do that, that'd be wonderful. You have to, how much money you received from who, the politician need to make it public. But the current rule is you can have so many wallets, and some you can register at the central level, some you can go to the prefecture or different prefectures. We are trying to change the rules so you can have only one organization to receive political contribution. So anyone has one, and if you go into the internet and look at it, people will know how much money you get from whom. If it's legal, then why you worry? So we wanted to change the things. The typical bailout thing was pretty bad bill, and we wanted to change it. Well, surprisingly, that typical bailout thing was, I mean, really crazy, and I thought LDP would attack it fiercely, but when we had a policy committee within the party, there were only four LDP members who opposed to that. We call them shitenno. They call us yoningumi. And well, the LDP leadership actually told us they made a compromise so that TEPCO will go down by the end of this year. And so we okayed. But actually, if you read the language of the bill, it's not that. So it was our mistake. Too bad. Madarame-san, well, I think we're going to have a change of the organization, and we have to be careful who to choose, who to head the new organization. I don't know if he's capable or not, but I think a lot of people saw the nuclear scientist saying different things, and a lot of them are saying not the right thing. So if we have a new organization for nuclear safety issues, I think we need something like a NRC in the United States. I think we may have to invite foreign experts to head or to sit in the committee. I think now there are many Japanese nuclear experts, but a lot of them are not trusted. And if the organization is not trusted, there's no point setting up one. So I think we need to invite a nuclear expert from outside, those who are not connected to our nuclear village or their nuclear village, and they have to set up a new rules, and that's what we have to do, I guess. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Kono-sensei, for informative and, as always, very frank presentation this evening. And I hope it's not too long before you join us again at TUD. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good night.